في سياق تصاعد أهمية العامل الاقتصادي في موازين القوى العالمية، وفي ظل عالم تسوده الخلافات الاقتصادية بين الدول الكبرى، ثمة تحول ملحوظ لمصلحة الدول الصاعدة اقتصادياً.
احنا قاعدين نمشي برؤية واضحة من قيادتنا، والاقتصاد والتجارة جزء من هالمنظومة في تطورها. 3 مستهدفات رئيسية معانا: مضاعفة اقتصادنا الوطني بحيث نوصل 3 تريليون إن شاء الله بعام 2031، مضاعفة صادراتنا الوطنية بالوصول إلى 800 مليار دولار عام 2031، وأيضاً أن نكون واحدة من أهم 10 دول في استقطاب المهارات واستبقائها في الدولة.
دولة الإمارات جعلت الاعتبارات الاقتصادية أولوية في توجهاتها، وحققت طفرات تنموية انعكست على موقعها في النظام العالمي بصفتها قوة وسطى يتعزز نفوذها الاقتصادي يوماً بعد يوم.
المتوقع اللي يكون النمو في اقتصادنا الوطني من 3 اتفاقيات مع الهند وإسرائيل وإندونيسيا يصل 2.6% بحلول عام 2030، وهذا نسبة ممتازة تكمل الجهود المختلفة اللي تقوم فيها دولة الإمارات لضمان مضاعفة اقتصادنا الوطني من 430 مليار إلى 860 مليار دولار إن شاء الله بحلول عام 2030.
كيف تتجه موازين القوى عالمياً؟ وما دلالات صعود القوى الوسطى؟ ما التحديات والفرص أمام دولة الإمارات في ظل البيئة الاقتصادية العالمية الراهنة؟ كيف ترسم علاقتها بالقوى الاقتصادية الرئيسية؟ كيف تؤسس خططها الاقتصادية المستقبلية؟ هذه الأسئلة وغيرها نناقشها مع معالي الدكتور ثاني بن أحمد الزيودي في محاضرة بعنوان دور التجارة والاستثمار في صعود دولة الإمارات كقوة وسطى.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, honored attendance. I'm happy in our Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research, happy to host His Excellency Dr. Thani Ahmed Al-Ziyudi, Minister of State for Foreign Trade, Minister of Charge of Talent Attraction and Retention, and the title is the role of trade and investment in the UAE's rise as a middle power. He is a prominent person, but he is now, from 2020, he is the Minister of State Foreign Trade position from July 2020, and his primary responsibility is to oversee development of non-oil foreign trade, and also he is currently presiding over the nation's efforts to secure comprehensive economic partnerships agreements with the strategic allies, and also the efforts to enhance UAE's investment climate and strengthening its position as a prime destination for business and investments at both regional and global levels. Also, Dr. Thani serves and finding the opportunities to attract international talents to achieve the economic, long-standing Emirati objectives. Before this position, His Excellency was the Minister of Climate Change and Environment and supervised the implementation of the country's strategies on climate action, agricultural development, and also he was the climate change and also permanent representative at IRENA, International Renewable Energy Agency. In 2020, he was awarded from the Davos to be in the Young Global Leadership Council. Now in 2023, His Excellency is still young and in his prime, and this is also for the efforts in the field of environment and climate change. In 2015, Dr. Al-Ziyudi received the first award for excellence from the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf, and also he awarded bachelor's degree in petroleum from Tulsa University, also MBA from the New York Institute of Technology, MBA in Project Management, also in Dubai, and PhD in Strategy Program and Project Management. The list is endless, and we are very proud that UAE is that this lecture comes among Emirati thinkers or Mufakkiru al-Imarat. The floor is you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Doctor. Peace be upon you, and good morning. And I'm very happy to be in the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research. A special thanks to His Excellency Dr. Sultan for organizing this lecture. It took time to organize, but we promise to be always part of the activities of the center. During the 40 or 45 minutes, I'll discuss on the international trends and the rise of middle powers, the role and some of the trends we are witnessing, and the geopolitical economic conditions, regional impacting the investment, trade, and economy. Also, I'll talk the role of UAEs and 50 years ago, and where we are now, and what is our future ambitions. As for the middle powers, recently we are witnessing, if you allow me, we have this clashes between the big or great poles. There is a big rise for middle powers, and middle powers not necessary to be advanced, but it could be emerging states or underdevelopment states, which we are witnessing or having or can play a role on the international arena. This will impact strongly on the international situation or in one particular sector they are interested in, and where they can have a big influence. These trends could be institutions, organizations, or trade, politics, and also in food as a mediator to found Indonesia, for example, interfered in the fertilizers and food between Russia and Ukraine, also in political issues and health issues also. These files shows that middle powers can play a role in these balances. Some examples here for Norway plays a key influential actor in the realm of international relations and humanitarian aids. And these are among their values. Singapore also is one of the most important hubs in diverse trade. And they are always careful to find solutions. You know, Singapore is a free trade zone completely, and they want to guarantee that the principles in Singapore are applicable on bigger areas worldwide. Turkey, as a key or a member in NATO, plays a key mitigator in international relations, especially lately or recently between Russia and Ukraine, and played a role for gas hub, which became vital issue for the European Union in the late month. Switzerland was always a neutral country, home for organizations and champion of multilateralism, and attracting countries to hold their conferences there, to find solutions from there in Switzerland. Before we start the middle powers, and let's take what is going around the world and what are the trends we are witnessing that form currently the future or the immediate future in economy and the different aspects of our lives. First, what happening today is there is a shift from west to the east, multipolar, also multipolarism, balance in economics, politics, and the traditional powers we are talking about. And now we are having such alliance between Russia and China. Russia wants to be a pole against the Western trends. Also, this entanglement during the 20 years in most of the organizations, international organizations, and we find this, there is a slowdown in some organizations and delay in making decisions. Even the decisions taken in these organizations are weak and don't have the power, executive power used to be. Instability, economic instability, generally worldwide, we are witnessing there is a slow in growth before the events COVID. Of course, 2021 was a recovery, and we find rocket on astronomical numbers, but because of the geopolitics, now the world is heading into depression and recession. Also, in some areas, they will have great depression if they don't find a solution and take practical steps towards mitigating and finding solutions to the political situation. Also, inflation, and there is still some stability in the last 2 weeks, but the inflation is still forming a challenge. Prices of oil and gas, which are very high, this is a big challenge, especially with Russia is exiting the market, and Russia is a big player, and this will cause confusion in the supply chain and finding an international supply to replace Russia. So it's not a quick fix and solutions to find solutions as a substitute for Russia, because it's not about to go to the market and find. No, because this is long-term investments, and this is the fund and the investments don't have any new projects in the oil, and now they are putting requirements, strict requirements to enter in these investment funds in oil and gas. So the oil and gas is a big challenge in the future and sensitive player in any international economic growth. Also, we found during COVID in the last 2 years and a half, many of supplies and goods didn't arrive the destination, especially because of the border closures in many countries, and this caused to replan. And these industries and the production process became localized. We found such relations between Jordan, Egypt, as an example. And as these alliances are happening or being formed now, we are, instead of having one supplier, to have multiple suppliers, and this will lessen the pressures to have on the availability of goods. But this will also pressure on the economies and the factories, because they have to make it strategic and to shift from strategic thinking into profitable. We have two schools here. One school that climate change is a conspiracy, and there is a school that this is a reality. In UAE, we find it an opportunity and a challenge. That challenge, there is contamination, pollution, and we don't anyone living in this country to be exposed to direct exposure to pollution. It's our duty to mitigate and lessen this pollution on man's health and whoever living in UAE. And there are opportunities in renewable energy, to invest in renewable energy. There is a growth in oil and gas in our production, but also there is an opportunity for investment now, $50 billion for 70 countries. And these opportunities, we are not going to invest without returns. These returns should be guaranteed and should be multiple through technology, through talents, attraction and retention of these talents. We expect also some disasters in Pakistan. Last week there was a conference to support Pakistan and the reconstruction because of floods took place in Pakistan. There are some pressures last year in India. They were expecting to increase their wheat production, but a drought and dryness changed their plans and affected the production of wheat. So any shift, any disaster, any change in a climate around the year or that drought will cause big disruption in planning for these goods and products. And also there is a big trend or inclination to reduce and neutralize carbon dioxide. We found a change in the European policies. Now they are using fossil fuel because this is a replacement for the solution for availing power for the season. So there are priorities changing, but there is always a chance to adapt our strategies to suit UAE's ambitions, objectives, and also we consider the principles and elements we have built and adopt. There is a new concept in the world which is autarky. This autarky is a new concept, and this term is used, literally means self-sufficiency, but actually it means when people or countries are working to have independence. This autarky inclination causes losses in incomes and revenues, so the world or the countries can benefit. At least $211 billion due to protectionism. If these countries are trying to work in isolation or in silos, the world is interconnected. After the Second World War, many countries moved to freedom and liberalization and shifted from protectionism to liberalization. And that's what we witnessed in the last 100 years, and due to the big advance in technology. But after COVID, the world moved back to protectionism, and we moved to the pre-Second World War in this protectionism move. As you see the graph here on the right, the number of agreements, it's almost stable in the last 10 years, but protectionism and the protectionist policies are increasing recently, and so this protectionism policies are coming back, and this is affecting the plans of many economies. The war between Russia and Ukraine, list of many scenarios actually, but this divided the world into two camps, into blocks, political and economic implications. We found, especially the Western Union, the Western countries, the European countries, are moving there to move away from dependence on the Russian economy, and they are moving towards new alliances, and also Russia and China also trying to forge an alliance. This Eurasian also alliance used as economic bloc to bypass all the pressures on them. Some countries also are stuck between these two sides, the Russian, Chinese, and the Western. By the way, we don't have this black and white choice. We have to consider our interests and work accordingly, of course, with respecting our international obligations and the international laws and under the UN agreements. Multipolarism, many axes and main trends. First, the prominent we have new international powers, which are China, Europe, and United States. But these powers are starting to separate, and they are forging their own policies. The second multipolarism is in managing these economies. Some countries are still open and trying to have a free economy and products flow, or to make it state-led development, as in China. The China state is interfering in the economies. We find this model also in many countries, adjacent countries, so that there is a growth, but this is led by the state. Other countries, no, they are trying to guarantee the flow and the mobility of the goods.
وأيضا التوجه الثالث
The third one is the economic wars and the separation through new alliances, the trade war, the tariffs increase, although the tariff went down to 90%, but now they are trying to increase these tariffs, to impose these and levy these taxes as a mechanism to use in these economic or trade wars. And also, we don't have to forget the technology to guarantee mobility and the fluidity in production and movement of products. The question that presents itself and everyone is this the end of globalization? Now, indeed, we are witnessing that globalization is recently starting to slow down. Personally, globalization has not ended, and many countries are rewriting the concept of globalization to suit the interests of states or economic blocs adopting this term. The impact of globalization, we have climate change, big debts on states. These will impact on globalization and managing things and managing differently and lessen dependence on the other parties. We find in emerging alliances. Many countries are also in Asia, Africa are making alliances. New alliances and the blocs are replacing the traditional organizations and multipolar organizations used to be. Again, the popularism, nationalism also becoming more pronounced, and also the prominence of new centers, regional, that are replacing the international ones. How can we see the world after 27 years almost? The G7 are meeting twice or thrice, depending on the issues. These countries, Britain, China, India, Canada, Japan, Germany, UK, Italy, France, and USA, they have principles. And these principles are in 1975, human rights, freedom, democracy, as they understand them, sustainability, and others. But these G7 are owning or possessing from 58% of the global wealth, and they are 46 of the global GDP. But after in 2050, what will happen? This will change completely. We have different new seven countries: China, India, Brazil, Mexico, Russia, Indonesia, and Turkey. These will be the economic leaders of the world. This economy will multiple in 2042, and most of this growth in these 7 countries I just mentioned. And the growth in these countries will be double of the current G7. And the economy will be even bigger than this, by 50%. So this is an indication why are we heading to work with in the E7, as I clarified in the slide. Because of and the new geopolitical scenes and this entanglement in the world trade, we are witnessing now exaggeration in the tariffs and being used in financial economic sanctions if they want to sanction such countries such as Russia being sanctioned, and also in the trade war with China, the ban of semiconductors to China, also the economic boycott that affected the private sector and the pressure, the Western pressure on not to use the Chinese technology in developing the infrastructure in the world. So how can we find the most important poles in the new? If we talk about Europe, Europe will continue its growth, focusing on AI, renewable energies, hydrogen energy as a substitute for Russian oil and gas, in participation with the United States in 2050. Also, there will be a problem with the European Union, which is a general problem we'll talk about in the coming slides, which is aging. Aging will become a major element and big challenge for most of the European economies because of the old age and the lack of youth who can continue the growth process, especially in Europe and America. So aging will add pressure on the new concept on silver economy. So they will focus on services related on old people or elderly and the aged people. China will continue its growth and expected to be the first economic leader in 2050, focusing on Africa. We find also growth in their economy and their mutual transactions with Africa. There is also a decrease in the population, which was the main element in the Chinese growth. The new pole that will be India. India will be the second biggest economy in 2050. They were the fifth a few months ago, but they are moving very fast. And according to the growth rate, in the coming years, 2030, I think even before 2050, they will exceed the numbers expected in the international reports. As for us, India, a big opportunity, close to us, similar to us, relations with them, India, and also big businessmen from India are here in the country, and they can accelerate the process and create positive impact from Indian economic growth on the Emirati growth. Big number of population of India is exceeding the number of the Chinese in 2027, and also the India. If in any discussion you are talking, we have starting to use and exploit the existence of the tremendous manpower in India as a driver for Indian economy. So they are depending on the population. United States will continue to be the political economic leader, well, a global leader actually in economy and politics, because they are clinching to this. There will be increase in North America, in Canada, to 400 million, and also they will face the aging to build the infrastructure to satisfy or meet the needs of the aging people or population. The middle powers are emerging also on the global stage. They are in different inclinations. First, they should be mediators that are serving their interests. They see themselves also as centers to attract some of the new trends in e-commerce or attracting investments or some sectors they are interested in. And they find solutions to not to be exposed to any pressures against their national interests. As we talked about the world, let's talk about the Middle East and the trends and the challenges of the Middle East. The demographic structure is a big challenge. There is migration for the labor. Usually it was the unskilled labor, but now the skilled are trying. Lack to the resources, due to the lack of resources. Can we use the youth in the growth the region is trying to achieve? Jobs also, we have a challenge. The oil fluctuation in prices, the conflicts and instability in the region also. The revenue, per capita incomes, the defense spending, and education. These are some of the challenges facing the region and the challenges around the world. Also the trends. There would be some geopolitical instability, and this is expected unless there is some breakthrough to these geopolitical situations. The new Silk Route and the new projects by China and how impacting us. Can we benefit from this? Can we find a substitute route? What we want to guarantee that to be part, that our investment and trade be part of this. Ukrainian war, will it end soon? Will it continue? The more it takes, the more negative impact we'll have, and if we solve this Ukrainian conflict quickly, this will lead to stability and growth. The big rise and the growth of Africa. 1.4 billion population in Africa. After 25 years, it's expected to be 2.6 billion. 1.1 or 1.2 billion will be increase in the population of Africa in the coming decades. So the main driver of skilled or unskilled labor is Africa. So the big trends, many countries want centers and vocational centers and professional centers to be in Africa. The world is decreasing. Some economic blocks, such as Eastern Europe, last year it was minus. The population is in minus. So that's why we have immigrants and refugees are heading to those countries, because this will be the opportunity to have such services around the world from these man labor in Africa continent. Iran and the financial system risk also, and the regional influence should be not forgotten and ignored. The youth in the Arab world. Before I talk, let's talk about the population. It is in growth and the number is increasing. It was 124 million. Now in 2020 it was 350, and it is expected to be 6.4. The youth now 26%, but our problem is like other continents, not the red, but the others. These are the countries where the youth is increasing, and this is our main problem also in the upcoming 25 years to come. So we have to exploit the youth coming now, because the challenge, finding youth, is the challenge for our growth in the region. There is another challenge, which is the immigration from countryside to cities. In 2015, it was 57% of the Arab population were in the cities. 75 in 2050 will be in the cities. So this is a problem, but also it is positive at the same time. The positive, the more centered in one place, it is helpful in security, benefit, and consumption is focused, but the negative will be pressure on the infrastructure. So the infrastructure should be also prepared to meet these big amount of population. The infrastructure should be also built in the countryside if we want to prevent and limit the immigration. But also the challenge of finding jobs also will be a challenge. So this immigration also will affect the agricultural sector. We find now there are some countries that are suffering from joblessness because they were depending on agriculture, and they want to move to the cities. So agricultural sector was attracting lots of population, but now we have a shift away from this agricultural sector, and that would be a challenge. Also, in some statistics, what are the most elements youth are interested in to achieve their desires and their needs? 75% and above were related to economy, jobless, for example, finding jobs, and the consumption prices, democracy, corruption, which is always raised in media, has actually no priority in the thinking of or in the minds of the youth who are seeking stability and finding jobs in the Arab region. As we find in the surveys, and for the youth and their interest in UAE as one of the most important places they want to live and work in because of the economic stability in UAE. Women and participation in the labor force. 50% of the world labor force is women. 24% of the labor force is women, and 18% for young females as labor force. Unemployment among youth in the region is double of the numbers in the male. If we are talking about ladies, 47% of unemployment for women, worldwide 60%, and for the male youth we have 24 in the region but 13% globally. So we are having such rates of unemployment among men and female and male. These numbers are a little bit old. That was 2020, but now the numbers are still close, but this also still causing a pressure on us and causing us what we call structural unemployment, to reduce and limit the number of unemployment. There is also another problem, especially in the late or 2-3 years, because most of the graduates were locked in their houses. So also university and disciplines should be reanalyzed, what is required for the job market, and to guarantee they are prepared for the job market in the coming future. So these are the international trends of the region. Let's talk about the implications of all what we said on the UAE and our trends in the coming period. The guarantee of attracting investments, fluidity of minds and talent, investment, and also supply and demand, and the fluidity of products and supplies into the country. And this goes into the growth model of UAE, which is based on talents, UAE and international talents, also logistics hub for attracting and using technology, also attracting foreign investment to the country. We talked about UAE as a middle power. What did we do? All of the challenges we talked about in the beginning, such as weakness and inefficacy of multi-party conferences and organizations, geopolitical problems, conflict and competition between the international powers. Where are we now? Where do we see our role? Firstly, we'll continue to be a coherent international and a neutral state, imposing our interests and what we see better for humanity, host future global institutions and world events such as Expo this year and also COP28. And following UAE peace deals with Israel, for example, to send a message that without peace there would be no stability. And this is part of our inclinations and the trends in the future. UAE is trying to be a key middle power. We have the third largest port operator in the world. Half the vaccines of COVID vaccines went through UAE. UAE, the biggest exporter of basmati rice. We don't produce it, but we are the biggest exporter. Third or fourth exporter of coffee. Fifth international exporter of tea. Fifth exporter of gold. We should not belittle of the UAE's power. We are starting to become a key player in the most important products and commodities, although we are not producing, but we are importing, processing, and then we re-export. Also we are mediating in many conflicts, especially His Highness Abdullah bin Zayed has played a role in mediating in conflicts. The biggest, most condensed airports and in Dubai. So Dubai ranked first in the world in attracting FDI in 2022. And it is acquiring 40% of the total by Arab countries with around 52. Dubai last year was the first in the world in attracting foreign direct investment in 2022, greenfield projects. And last year, an inflow of 4,000 high net billionaires coming into the country. And this will impact positively in the country. This is to give you the numbers and the figures. How do we see UAE as a middle power playing a role? Let's talk about the countries we are working with closely. India, the fourth pole, which we have historic relations, cultural ties, and the trade relations with them. The fastest growth economies. And we said there would be double for their exports and double for imports and local industries. So the Indian economy is growing in fast pace. It could be immigration from Indian countryside to the cities in more than 250 million persons from countryside to the cities. There should be infrastructure suitable to serve these new comers to the city. And this is a chance for our service sector to have investment opportunities. And His Highness President of the State, Mohammed bin Zayed, may God protect him, there was an investment fund by more than 200 millions for investment in India. Also, after that, we have Israel, and Israel is a country where we expect to have growth. They started to one of the most important countries among the 25 commercial partners. We have a big amount of trade balance, though our relation with them is very new. And so this means peace and stability and tolerance plays a big role. So we signed a CEPA with Israel in less than 4 months and a half. So, and also with India, that will also facilitate and increase that trade. Indonesia also, the fourth population Islamic economy, and we are working to have it as a strategic partnership in the region. So in fashion, they have Islamic economy, Islamic fashion, also Islamic banking. So in Malaysia also, Malaysia is one of the biggest and fastest economies in the last 10 years. They doubled their economies and they are creating new economies and productions such as minerals and main economies and industries in Indonesia. We have a CEPA with Indonesia. Turkey also, you know, geopolitics with them is a little bit complicated, not that strong, but what we succeeded and Turkey will be in one of the biggest economies in 2050s, and now the growth is and the trade is more than 50%, and we will go with commercial agreements with the Turks. They are very difficult negotiators, but we expect to have to achieve our goals. But they are difficult negotiators, but still a big important country in the region. Africa, I talked about the numbers in Africa, but UAE, what did we do with these numbers? The fourth investor, UAE is the fourth investor in Africa, and this shows the importance of UAE as investor in Africa. And this is due to the infrastructure and the relationships and the management style between UAE and Africa. So in the coming period, you will find big interest in Africa. And His Highness Shakhbout bin Hayyan played big role in establishing and strengthening these relations with the Black Continent. Eastern Europe, and one of the countries and regions witnessing big growth. They are focusing on the digital economy, digitization, and they have big efforts in this. And the fourth revolution, economic revolution, AI, now they have lots of and trying to establish big relations and partnerships with them. The GDP is more than 5% in the with increase, and there is decrease in the number of population, and this is due to the immigration either to Western Europe and other parts of the world, and they are suppliers of the most in ICT sector, the digital skills in the country. Go back to history, see our numbers. Where are we now, and where are we heading? In 1975, the GDP of UAE was 19.21 billion. Then it is increased by 417 in 2021. The exports was 7. It became 425 billion in 2021. And total imports were 3 billion, and now they are 348 billion in 2021. And this shows or indicates the economic growth and the trade sector generally. We are depending on oil, but not that much. In 75, it was 57.3%, but in 2021 is now just 28.7% dependence on oil. But most of the oil revenues are used in diversity and strategic investments. Oil is part of our economy, but we are trying to use it in diversity, and our plan is to diversify our economies and the production for all of the economic sectors in the country. As for the sectors we are depending on, before the union we were depending on fishing, seafaring, pearl extraction, then we moved to oil sector, wholesale and retail sector, construction and infrastructure sector in the 1980s, and the 1990s we went into industry, manufacturing, metal products.
صناعة الأقمشة. اليوم نحن عندنا قطاعات مختلفة، نتكلم عن القطاعات المالية، البنوك، قطاع الأغذية، قطاع السيارات والمكملات، قطاع الأسمنت.
Today we are an international hub. UAE was a regional center, but now so the numbers will our numbers As expected, His Highness, the numbers exceeded 2.2, and it will be announced in details after ending analyzing these numbers and making sure all the data in the coming weeks, God willing. UAE is a strong for FDI. We are the 5th attractor and recruiter of investment, and the first more than 535 new projects in 2020. The most main investors
استراتيجية كان في موضوع أشباه المواصلات وإدراجها في سوق نيويورك. فهذا يبين قوة الاستثمارات أيضا واستراتيجيتها اللي ياسين يقوم فيها خارج الدولة. شو نقصد بقطاع الخدمات؟ قطاع الخدمات اللي نقصد فيه مثل القطاعات التكنولوجيا، التعليم، الاحترافية، الخدمات المالية الإسلامية، السياحة، الضيافة، الاقتصاد الإبداعي. فهذه أمثلة من الخدمات أو القطاعات معانا. وثلثين الاستثمارات اللي كانت خلال 20 سنة الماضية كانت في قطاع الخدمات، وهذا وسبب رئيسي أنه شو ما صار حروب وسكرنا في الحدود وزدنا في التعرفة. القطاع الخدمي ترى خدمات أنت تقدم، ما تقدم سلعة، فوايد انسابيته أسهل بكثير من قطاع الخدمات. فكان هناك اهتمام كبير خاصة من الدول اللي عارفة أنها بتدخل في حروب تجارية أن يدخلون في هذا القطاع بشكل كبير. فالاهتمام كان بشكل كبير من الدول الغربية. أمريكا والاتحاد الأوروبي من أهم يعني الدول قيادة لهذا القطاع عالميا، وهم يستحوذون على معظم القطاع الخدمات عالميا. طبعا القطاع يوفر 50% من الوظائف عالميا في عام 2019، وأيضا كان هناك نمو بنسبة في
So the sector provides most jobs globally, 50%, and these are many factors for this technology, infrastructure, digital technology. High salaries in this sector, and also the influence environment sectors on the sector. In UAE, these sectors which witnessing big growth, we are not limiting. These are some of the examples that are witnessing in sector. For example, ICT 8.5 almost, education also 5% increase, professional services also in our country, and we started to export, and the talents are striving to serve the region and the other countries. Also, UAE is considered as the second Islamic financial services sector and provider. Financial services are very strong, and medical tourism also in UAE is very important. 70% of the medical tourism in the region, and this shows the strong service sector in UAE, and also a creative economy, and we are taking big care in entertainment and media generally. We talked about our exports in basmati, tea, coffee. UAE is the third largest re-exporter after Hong Kong. The numbers from exports are very high, in the almost reached 300 billion in the first half of 2022, up by 20% compared to the same period in 2021. And this is due to the exploitation of the infrastructure. I have all of these numbers. I would not repeat. I talked about tea, coffee, rice, but half of the UAE's non-oil exports are from re-exports. As also for in the foreign trade and global supply chains, and during the COVID, it was how to guarantee the fluidity of supplies and the products and the supply chain. We talked about the COVID, Dubai's airport, Abu Dhabi, We have the 9th most jammed port, and more than 80% of containers go through Abu Dhabi ports, and Abu Dhabi Ports Group acquire 80% stake in global feeder shipping. So Emirates in the supply chain is playing key role. We talked about economy and trade. In a humanitarian aid, UAE is the most important international donors. We are ranking first in the human aid. We exceeded 56 billion US dollars during the last 11 years. We are focused on the humanitarian sector. Africa takes the biggest part, after that Asia, and after that the America and European Union. This helped UAE to make UAE hosting more than 200 nationalities. Also, major global corporations are having their headquarters here. And also they are covering not only the UAE but the region and the world also. The most important investors in UAE coming from India, China, United Kingdom and Russia. We talked about where are we heading and what is the next stage and what are our next plans. We are focusing on CEPAs, comprehensive economic partnerships to attract investments and GDP and increasing our exports. Depending also, we want to sign 27 trade agreements, covering 127 countries, and we want to be a financial center, especially. We are talking about the crypto and the blockchain, the applications, and trying to attract these investments, and we are careful to have UAE as a diversity of these investments to increase our exports and develop our talents and skills in the supply chain and the logistics, not only through the infrastructure but also developing technologies and the programs and upscaling skills and fluidity and of these skills in and out the country. With this, I conclude my presentation. I'm ready to answer any of the questions. Thank you very much.
شكرا معاليك على.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for this comprehensive insight. Now you made a difficulty for what kind of questions we present. Many questions we'd like to. You have answered most of the questions we'd like. I'd leave the floor for the audience to question or to put their questions. No doubt that UAE, for the challenges, whether at the world, UAE is not in isolation from the readings of other countries. Other countries are trying to improve their investments and foreign trade and economies in general. Among all of this competition, is there any kind of a challenge, Your Excellency, in competition between regional competition, Gulf and international competitions? And can we invest in this competition so that we can have supplementary and integral operations? Thank you, Doctor. This is a question that direct to us wherever we go. Competition and competitiveness is very important, and our development is due to this competitive aspect, and this makes everyone seeks the best technologies, best practices, and employ these according to the local policies. Regional competition is very important and positive. Let me be frank. The international reports in economy, trade, our region is always not at the bottom of the list. It's not there at all, and this is something we don't want. If in our country, our region, in this report, this means that the investor doesn't want this region and doesn't think of this. So competitiveness makes the region among the economic international reports and attracts businessmen and the attention of investors to this country. Geopolitics, thank God, helped to attract the attention of businesses and direct investments to this region. And even the World Cup in Qatar attract the attention of the world to this region and the opportunities they can find in this region. Are there opportunities from this competition? Of course, in coordination with all the players in the country, we'll find how to complement and work together. Allow me, Doctor. In competitiveness in airplanes and the flights, you have Al-Ittihad, Emirates, Qatari. Why are we building big airliners and competing with each other? No, the Gulf. Now we have attracted big number of travelers to this country, and this will help flow of travelers into the country as part of tourism, and part of them will come. They settle here, work here, and bring their businesses and families here. So competition is positive, and the more we understand the international scene will make our job easier to attract talents to the country. I leave the floor to the audience. Please raise your hand, introduce yourself, and put your question. Peace be upon you. Khalid al-Busaidi, DAD Abu Dhabi, Trade Development Section. Thank you very much for the presentation. You mentioned, Your Excellency, that during the presentation that the world, as for the geopolitics, is tending to depend completely and to operate independently in services and production. How this will impact our region, especially the Gulf states, generally, import foods, devices, machinery, and what are our preparations, whether in UAE or other state countries? Thank you so much, Mr. Khalid. We'll take some other questions. Then we give the answers by His Excellency. Mike, please. Ahmed As-Safti, Management of Economic Studies in the Center. Thank you, Your Excellency, for the presentation. My question is that World Trade System, as you said, played a role in liberalizing trade, and recently the World Organization is retreating or are retreating. Can we go to the liberalization of foreign trade and a mechanism for solving trade conflicts? Yusuf An-Nuwais, businessman. Doctor, nice coverage, comprehensive for all of the economic aspects for businessmen to consider. That chart on related between EU and emerging markets, the new Pole, Turkey, Russia, India. Where do you see UAE or the region and the alliance with any of these blocks? And how do you see our position in the economic power and the shift that will take place from G7 to E7? Thank you.
For the very insightful presentation.
Your good name, please.
My name is Dr. Idol Fakwe. I am an associate professor at the Khalifa University, the Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering. I also do some work with the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on the climate change. I was really pleased to see that this sustainability was a key theme in the presentation, which is very good. I have a question. The very first is that you did touch on the fact that by 2030, the aim is to double the foreign trade, which is very ambitious and very, very good. On the other hand, we also know that the UAE has a very well-established sustainability action strategy up until the 2030, and the aim is to always try and decouple trade and economic development from the environment. I just want to ask if the current positioning of the sustainability strategy for the country is dynamic to respond to the repositioning of the fact that we want to increase trade, and would the sustainability agenda be able to respond to the aim to double trade in order to try and decouple economic development from the environment? Thank you very much.
ثانك يو دكتور. تفضل. سمحوا لنا ترى طول الوقت، لكن محاضرة شيقة والأسئلة صراحة جدا جميلة، فاعذرونا الله يحفظكم.
مريم الوهيبي، مساعد باحث اقتصادي، مركز الإمارات.
Mariam Al-Wahibi, my question is, UAE, as UAE is a regional emerging economic power, what is its position in the map to come? We'd like to keep balance between women and men. So if ladies, my sisters, if you have any question, please don't hesitate. Firstly, thank you, His Excellency, for the valuable and information he presented. Sultan Al-Handasi, Director General of Al-Fujairah Chamber. In fact, the markets His Excellency talked about, such as Turkey, Pakistan, India, and the new markets, can many of international trade, global trade, especially they are near UAE and big numbers as in population terms. But my question is, we can find emerging markets from Africa. Can we consider Africa as a new market where UAE can enter in the coming period? Also, technology entry in many of the institutions, as a second part of the question, participated in accelerating the work in the institutions and developing the institutions to the degree to dispense of many jobs, especially government entities, without need to big numbers of jobs, and now they are sufficient with the few or less. Can we make the private sector as a destination for the youth and entrepreneurs to occupy many jobs, and what are the potentials if there is a trend that might help youth in entry the private sector? Thank you. We leave the questions for Your Excellency to answer. Thank you, Doctor. Thanks for the questions. As for Mr. Khalid, are for the challenges on the country and the solutions and independency of some countries. This is a big global challenge, but in UAE, because of have our institutions such as ports, Abu Dhabi ports, Dubai ports, and communication with more and connectivity with more than 400 points around the world. This guarantees the fluidity and mobility of the products. And during the crisis, we used and exploited these challenges, and we made them into opportunities, especially our national carriers, most of the planes and the cargo planes. We adapted these the flights according to the needs of the country and the needs of the friend countries. So we adapt our needs to benefit from these challenges. What kind of solutions? Partnerships. Any new partnerships, we can use it.
الجانب السلبي.
And we think of the positive aspects. For example, digital economy agreement and the partnerships between Singapore and New Zealand and Chile. The obligation, we don't know its consequences. We are studying this so that we don't have any negative dimensions on the country. Is there desire? Yes. Such alliances that help us develop our work, especially in the and digital commerce, we will study, and we are taking an informed decision without the multi-party conferences to work with these multi-conference on party conferences. We found, yes, partnerships and alliance with Jordan, Egypt, Bahrain, and also the alliance between America, Israel, and UAE and India. Also, we have partnerships with other alliances such as ASEAN, and to be a supervisory member, and in the future be a permanent part. So all of these alliances are opportunities to face the challenges. Yes, free trade will remove all the barriers existing. Even if there is a plan to impose some of the barriers, these agreements can remove these barriers. So this, of course, can be part, this answer can answer His Excellency, Mr. Sultan. Now, we are not focusing on the things you just witnessed. Other countries we are working with many different countries. For example, Kenya, for example. We started with Kenya, and there is some discussions with other countries. So our game is to reach 27 agreements in the 10 years to come, to exceed also the other numbers. And the aim is to have a fluidity, big fluidity in e-commerce. As for Dr. Ahmed, as for the World Trade Organization in Maris, Abu Dhabi, this year we will host, and our important is to revive this organization. There are challenges, of course. A stone in the stagnant water, actually, in last May, but we are thinking and working intensively to have a paradigm shift in opening up to the world. And international organizations were established to facilitate goals for specific countries, but now the whole world now understand how to use these organizations, and trade war is starting even within these organizations. And we promise that there would be diplomatic efforts from UAE, economic efforts from UAE, that the conference will be successful and break this stagnation in the multi-party conferences. We are working on two parallels, organizations on one part, but also this doesn't prevent us from entering into alliances, international alliances such together. So work with organizations and alliances, and if we don't benefit, we learn. Mr. Abu Muhammad, you talked about where will be the UAE with the European Union. It is the third world partner with UAE. It's impossible to do without it. We are working with India, but also we will continue with the European Union, but in a way that answers our interests and their interests. We are trying to find the solutions for the challenges they are facing, especially hydrogen energy and clean energy, AI, and their direct needs. And this is part of our needs to expand our investment in this sector. As for other countries, we have plans with each country. We have businessmen, and they to guarantee coordination and assess the opportunities in these countries and attract the businessmen from those countries into the country. As for doubling the foreign trade and doubling economy, how can we find this in sustainability? Sustainability is part of our work in trade, which depends on electricity, and electricity is 20%. We reached 20 to 30% of a clean energy, and the nuclear energy and 30%, and in 2050, 50% will be generated from the new and the clean energy. And there is a plan to restudy the numbers and the energy related to trade, and will be trying to export some of the sustainable products produced from a clean energy. For example, some Emirati aluminium. These will be exported to Europe from a clean aluminium, and these are some of the first international aluminium produced by clean and sustainable energy. You talked about economic alliances in the future and the role of the UAE in these alliances. Every alliance has background, reasons, and interests. If we talked about alliance between Jordan, UAE, and Israel, this will answer, Professor, what was the reason? Investment, the main reason. Investing in energy in Jordan and investing in production of water in Israel. These are profitable projects. What is for Jordan? They want water, and this is the main reason and need for Jordan. The Israelis want clean energy to export their products by clean energy to Europe. So I adapted my investment in the projects according to my interests. The same applies to all other projects in the quadruple alliance, so in food security alliance and other alliances. So in the country and will adapt their investments in accordance to their needs and future plans to the state. His Excellency Sultan, I answered your question. Will technology get away and remove many jobs, will cancel many jobs? Yes, we need the youth. If we don't them in the government entities, the private sector needs them, and the numbers are increasing. Two parts. We need to encourage youth to use the opportunities. We find businessmen creating their businesses here, and we need the Emirati youth to establish and start their own businesses in UAE. Yusuf Ali, for example, came here and started from a grocery. Now he is a billionaire. Some other businessmen. I want again to the CEPAs, comprehensive economic partnerships. They will open big markets for the youth who are entering this business and entrepreneurial sector. So they can start as a small businessmen, and then they grow as they are big names in the world of business. The market is not the traditional we are using, not the Arab or Gulf. Now we are competing and reaching markets, big markets such as Indonesia and India, and that where the population is 2 billion. So in the coming future, we want the youth leading the business and becoming the prominent billionaires in the country. Your Excellency, great dialogue, but sorry, unfortunately, time is running up. I'd like to thank the audience. I'd like also, in the name of the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research, we'd like to thank His Excellency Dr. Thani bin Ahmed Az-Ziyudi, Minister of State for Foreign Trade. Thank you very much, Doctor.